You can survive about 3 weeks without food. Without water, you have about 3 days, maybe less if it's hot and you're moving. So every single day of your life, you solve this problem without thinking. You turn a tap and clean water appears. Your ancestors had no tap, no pipes, no filters, no bottles, and no idea that germs even existed. And yet they crossed deserts, survived droughts, and walked out of Africa, which means that every single day they solved the hardest problem of all, finding water that wouldn't kill them. So how did they do it? The answer involves reading the landscape like a book, the world's first water bottle, and a discovery that flips everything you think about clean water, because it turns out ancient humans may have had safer water than the first city dwellers, and the reason why is genuinely uncomfortable. To understand this, you have to understand how brutal thirst really is. Your body is roughly 60% water. You lose it constantly, so through sweat, through breathing, through every trip to the toilet. In a hot climate, walking all day, you can lose several liters without noticing. And when you lose it, things go wrong fast. First comes thirst, then a headache, then dizziness. Then you're thinking clouds, your muscles cramp, and your heart begins to race. Within days, your organs start to fail. There is no toughing it out. There is no rationing your way around it. Water is not a resource for humans. Water is the deadline, which means for our ancestors, everything revolved around it. Where they camped, where they hunted, when they moved. Their entire lives were organized around the nearest drinkable water. And that changed absolutely everything about how humans lived. So imagine you are standing on the open savanna 200,000 years ago. You are thirsty, the sun is high, and there is no water in sight. What do? You don't wander randomly, you read. Because to an ancient human, the landscape was a map, and it was covered in clues. The first clue was the animals. Every animal has to drink, just like you do. So you follow their tracks, and you follow them downhill. Because water always runs down, and tracks converge where the water is. Herds of grazing animals will visit the same waterhole every day. Their trails cut deep, worn paths through the grass, all pointing the same way. Follow enough footprints and they will lead you straight to the water. The second clue was the birds. Certain birds, especially seed-eating ones, must drink daily, and they fly straight and low toward water in the morning. Watch which way they go at dawn, and you will know where to walk. In the evening, they fly back the other way, slower and heavier. The third clue was the plants. Green, lush vegetation in a dry landscape means water is close to the surface. Certain trees only grow where their roots can reach groundwater. So a line of green trees across a dry plain is not just a view. It's an arrow pointing at buried water. The fourth clue was the ground itself. Water flows downhill and collects in valleys, dips, and dry riverbeds. Even when a riverbed looks completely dry, water can still be hiding underneath, and ancient humans knew exactly how to get to it. Because here is one of the smartest things our ancestors ever figured out. In a dry riverbed, you dig. You find the outside bend of the curve where the water ran deepest. You look for the coolest, dampest sand, often in the shade of a bank. And then you dig a hole, sometimes only an arm's length deep. And slowly, muddy water begins to seep in from the sides. You wait, you let the sand settle, and you drink water that was invisible 10 minutes ago. This is called a seep well or a sand well. Hunter-gatherers across Africa and Australia have used this exact technique into modern times. And here's the beautiful part. That sand isn't just hiding the water, it's filtering it. Water forced through layers of sand comes out cleaner than water sitting on the surface. Our ancestors were using a natural sand filter tens of thousands of years before anyone understood why it worked. They didn't know about bacteria, they just knew that this water tasted better and made you sick less often. And that knowledge, passed from parent to child, was worth more than any weapon. But the most precious water source of all was the spring. A spring is groundwater that pushes its way up to the surface on its own. It flows even when the rivers dry up and the rain stops falling, and it comes out of the earth already filtered by the rock it traveled through. Cool, clean, and reliable. To an ancient human, finding a spring was like finding treasure, and scientists now think springs did something far bigger than quench thirst. Researchers call them hydrorefugia, water refuges. During brutal droughts, when whole landscapes turned to dust, the springs kept flowing. They became islands of life in a dying world. Our ancestors gathered around them, survived around them, and waited out the dry years. And when humans finally began to spread out of Africa, researchers believe they may have moved from spring to spring, like stepping stones. Think about what that means for a moment. The entire spread of our species across the planet may have been mapped by water. Every migration route, every new continent, every human being alive today traces back to a chain of springs bubbling quietly out of the ground. Water didn't just keep us alive, water decided where we went. Now here's the question you're probably already asking. All this water came from puddles, rivers, and holes dug in the sand. Wasn't it filthy? Wouldn't it be crawling with bacteria and parasites? And this is where it gets genuinely surprising, because ancient humans had no idea germs existed. But they had something almost as good. They had rules, learned the hard way over thousands of years. Rule number 1, always prefer moving water over still water. A fast stream flushes itself clean. A stagnant pool grows things that will hurt you. Ancient humans consistently chose flowing water when they had the choice. They didn't know why. They just knew the still water made people sick. Rule number 2, drink upstream, not downstream. Drink above the animals, above the camp, above anything that fouls the water. Rule number 3, trust your senses. If the water smelled wrong, or tasted foul, or looked cloudy, you didn't drink it. Disgust is not squeamishness. Disgust is an ancient survival instinct. That instinctive flinch you feel at green, slimy water is thousands of generations old. Rule number 4, water that seeps through sand or rock is safer than water on the surface. And that one rule alone probably saved millions of lives. None of this made their water perfectly clean. They absolutely still got sick and parasites were common. But their rules worked well enough for our species to survive and spread across the world. But finding water was only half the problem, because you can't stay next to a spring forever. You have to hunt, you have to travel, you have to cross dry ground. So how do you take the water with you? And this is where our ancestors did something brilliant. In South Africa, archaeologists found something extraordinary. Fragments of ostrich eggshells deliberately turned into containers. An ostrich egg is enormous. It can hold about a liter of water. The shell is thick, hard, and surprisingly tough. They punched a small hole in the top, emptied it, and filled it with water. Then they plugged it with grass and carried it across the landscape, and these were dated to around 60,000 years ago. That is the oldest known canteen in human history. But here's the detail that gives me chills. Many of those eggshells were carefully engraved with patterns, lines, crosses, hatched designs, scratched deliberately into the shell. Nobody knows exactly what they meant. They may have marked ownership. This one is mine. Or they may have marked the group. This one belongs to us, which would mean these are not just water bottles. They may be some of the oldest symbols humans ever made. Our ancestors didn't just invent the water bottle. They immediately decorated it and made it theirs. If that just changed how you see a plastic bottle on your desk, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. And they used other containers too, hollowed out gourds, large shells, animal stomachs and bladders sealed and tied. Later, they lined woven baskets with clay or pitch to make them watertight. Every one of these was a way of stealing time from thirst, because a container full of water means you can go where the water isn't, and that is exactly how humans crossed the deserts. So for hundreds of thousands of years, this system worked. Read the land, dig the sand, follow the springs, carry what you can, and then around 12,000 years ago, humans did something new. They stopped moving, they built villages, they farmed, they settled down in one place, and suddenly the old rules stopped working. Because a hunter-gatherer band moves away from its own waste. When the water goes bad, you simply walk to the next stream. But a village cannot walk away. Now hundreds of people live, wash, and defecate in the same small area, and their waste goes into the ground, and the ground feeds the water. For the first time in human history, we were drinking our own contamination. And here comes the twist that changes the whole story. Waterborne disease exploded. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid, parasites, diseases that could tear through a settlement and kill thousands. Some of the deadliest killers in all of human history came from dirty water, and they were overwhelmingly a problem of settled life. A scattered band of 30 hunter-gatherers drinking from a flowing stream was relatively safe. A crowded city, drinking from a river it also used as a toilet, was a death trap. So sit with this for a second. Ancient hunter-gatherers may well have had cleaner, safer drinking water than the citizens of early cities. We didn't inherit the water problem, we built it. Civilization gave us farming, writing, and cities, and it also poisoned the water. So humans had to invent their way out of a problem they had created. They dug wells, going deep to reach cleaner groundwater below the filth. In China, archaeologists found wells dug 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. They built cisterns to catch clean rainwater from the sky. They learned to boil water and to brew it into beer and tea, which is a huge, underrated fact. For most of history, weak beer and boiled tea were often safer than the local water. Not because people loved beer, but because boiling it killed what was in it. They built aqueducts, sewers, and clay pipes, but it took until the 1800s for anyone to understand why any of it worked. Scientists finally proved that invisible germs in water were killing people, and only then did we begin filtering and treating water on purpose. That's barely 200 years ago. 200 years out of 300,000. The tap in your kitchen is the newest part of this entire story. So how did ancient humans get their water? They read the tracks of animals and the flight of birds. They dug into dry sand and waited for the earth to give up what it was hiding. They gathered at springs that flowed when everything else had died. They carried a liter of life in a decorated eggshell and walked into the desert. And they did it all without ever knowing what a germ was. They didn't understand the science, but they understood the land, and they trusted knowledge that was older than they were. Every one of them who got it wrong died, and every one of them who got it right is your ancestor. So the next time you fill a glass at the sink without a single thought, remember that you are holding the thing your ancestors spent their entire lives chasing. It cost them everything, and it costs you nothing. 2 seconds and a turn of a handle. It might be the single greatest luxury a human being has ever had. If you've never thought about that before, tell me in the comments. What's the one modern thing you'd miss most? And if you want more of the hidden history behind your everyday life, subscribe. The next one might be even stranger.